Hey yo, it's me, Lucky Bastard. And today I want to talk about some invasions that I had last week with my level 33 early mid-game character, which by itself already is kind of a first touch at the topic, I guess. How do you even define what is early game or mid game or late game in this game? Because it's open world and you can kind of go everywhere from the very beginning, with the exception of only a couple progression checks where you have to defeat so and so many bosses before progressing through the store or something. But even those can be circumvented. And I'm not talking about some insane speedrun tech like warp glitches, wrong warps or something. The more you know about the game, the easier it will be to reach even end game regions. Like this one, for example, has reached the Helic tree. I have a level 7 character who is a starting class character who reached the Helic tree with only using starting class gear, except for talismans and an upgrade level of +3. I'm not trying to flex how insanely good I am at PvE. I'm just trying to give you somewhat of a benchmark of what is possible in this game if you know your way around. Now, if you look at my rune counter at this moment, you will see the magic number 355,173, which is the maximum possible rune gain that you can get from defeating a furled finger. The amount of runes you get from defeating a furled finger depends on their level. So this guy was max level 713, that's why I gained this gigantic amount of runes for defeating him. Keep in mind I'm only level 33, so the host also has to be inside my invasion range, which means he can only be at best level 56. The invasion range considers my level plus 10% of my level plus flat 20, which in my case is 56, and the lower boundary is just minus 10% of your level, so it would be 30. So even considering the host would be at the max possible level, he would still have a phantom in his world or a finger who is almost 13 times as high level as them. The game normally does not allow you to summon phantoms this high level unless you share a multiplayer password with them, which means probably the phantoms and the host are friends or they met on some third-party platform like Discord or something. This furthermore means that this is a very deliberate act, this act of co-oping with this overleveled character, and the core topic of this video is just the question why? Why are people co-oping with a max level build in the early game of Elden Ring? I mean, it's not necessarily about max level, just being very over leveled. I mean, I would consider having 3 times the level of the host as being very over leveled already. So I've come up with a couple of possible reasons, in my opinion. I'm not a psychologist, and even if I were, I guess this is a topic that's too far and wide to just narrow it down to one possible answer. And I would also encourage you, the viewer, to please share your opinion with me in the comment section, because maybe you think about something that I am not thinking about. In the best case, you're even one of those people who do max level co-op or high level co-op with low level hosts, and you can tell me just why you're doing it, please. So the first thing I came up with is, in my opinion, the most likely or most obvious scenario, which is just ganking. So PvP induced overleveledness for the sake of gaining as big of an advantage as possible over the invaders. This has always been a thing in From Software games and will always be a thing. It's kind of the opposite of twinking, where you choose a PvP character for invasions which is a very low level in order to invade low-level people with endgame gear. This is, as I said, kind of the opposite, where you choose a high-level character and you get summoned by a low-level host in order to be much higher level than your invaders. The invasion range formula I already explained earlier. So, for example, in this clip you've just seen in the background, or foreground, while I'm talking anyway, there is this Chinese gank at the main academy gate, which used to be the most popular duel spot. So if somebody's standing there in this circle and pretending to have a duel, most people will, even in invasions, probably have a duel with this guy. But in this case, there were two more guys hiding in the bushes, one of them with a great bow and the other one spamming the Elden Stars miracle or incantation, which is basically a gigantic star that follows you around and shoots those undodgeable super small projectiles at you, and the big projectile just explodes if it hits you or it hits the ground near you. However, those two fingers were both extremely overleveled. One of them was actual max level, so level 713, and the other one was only level 609. Which is, I mean, okay, also 100 levels away from max level. There's barely any difference anymore between that and max level. But I tried to invade them again at this spot and I didn't find them, so I just found these guys instead. The finger also seems like he's overleveled, but unfortunately the host is too aggressive, and so I don't get to take out the finger, and I cannot exactly tell you what level he was, because I need to see how many runes I get for defeating him to exactly calculate his level. There are tools for that online, just enter rune level calculator on Google. So since I did not find those guys again, I'm kind of doubting that they were intentionally ganking. I think they were just trying to co-op this area, and I just, you know, casually invaded them and interrupted them at their co-op session. So again, I'm asking myself the question, why are they doing this? I just cannot imagine that co-oping at max level with a low level guy in just regular new game and defeating the regular new game bosses is any fun. I just can't imagine doing that myself. This guy, by the way, was level 125 meta level, so a little less than 4 times my level. Oh yeah, and something that is also very important to mention in this context, if you're trying to gank, being super over leveled compared to your host, you're also going to get some down scaling, which means that you will have less max HP and you will deal less damage if your host is a lower level and has lower weapon upgrades than you. So maybe ganking as a very over-leveled phantom isn't even the best strategy in order to have the easiest fight against an invader. And I'm not trying to help the gankers and tell them what they should do in order to have the easiest fight against the invaders, but I'm just logically thinking about what could be the reason for over-leveling so much. The next possible reason that I could think about would be just blatant laziness. I mean, no offense, but I think that people just don't want to make a new character for co-oping, and maybe if they already have finished the game with one character, they are just trying to use that one for their friends' run to co-op with them. But in my opinion, this is a bad idea because you're kind of robbing each other of an experience, and you're also robbing your friend of some runes, because if you co-op, you only get 75% of the rune reward for bosses, and as the co-oper you get 25%, so you would also have to summon your friend into your world and defeat the same boss again. So they would once gain 75% in their own world, and then in your world they gain an extra 25%, so they're back to the normal amount of runes that they would have gotten if they soloed the boss. By the way, dual Katana Malenia in this clip was level 166. And because the host just let us duel, I dropped him a couple of Lord's runes just to compensate for his waiting time, I guess. This guy was so cute, he even dropped me some runes as well. So yeah, to sum up my previous thought about why people use their overleveled characters because they maybe don't want to make a new character. I think if you don't want to make a new character for a new playthrough, you maybe should consider just not playing the game again. You're most likely not going to have a nice experience, and you might also ruin the first playthrough experience for your friend if it is their first run. If you want to have fun and an engaging co-op session with your buddy, having a new character to play with them at the appropriate level for the bosses is just way more fun. And I would encourage everyone to do that. I mean, obviously I'm playing on PC, so for me it's super easy to just have as many save files as I want. And I can just theoretically have one character and back up my save file at every 10 levels and just finish the game with this character once. And if I back up my file every 10 levels, I will have a co-op character for basically every level. I would encourage people, if they want to co-op a lot, they should just do that. They should just have several characters for several level brackets at least. I mean, you don't need a character on every level, but maybe one kind of starting class character, maybe one at level 20 to 30, maybe one at level 50, maybe one at level 80, and so on. I mean, the higher you get, the less significant the difference will be. If you're 150 and your co-op partner is 125, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you use your high level character for the end game when your friend is already level 130 and you use your 150 character or whatever, who cares? At this point it doesn't really matter that much anymore, but using your 150 plus character for the early game, I just don't get it. You're just going to trivialize every battle and just probably not feel rewarded at all. The first guy I just took out in this invasion was level 259. I mean, imagine level 259 against the earlier mid-game of Elden Ring. I mean, that's even high level for the final boss. I mean, if you have just a normal new game playthrough, you're never going to end up at level 259, maybe 159. But in order to get there, he probably either ran the game another time or grinded or just farmed himself up or just duped some runes or whatever. At this point, you might as well just make a new character for co-op and play at the same level as your friend. And you won't even have to put in any additional effort, just play the game normally. This guy was level 172, by the way. Imagine those guys just fighting against the boss of this area. This boss is not really a hard boss, it's just a demi-human queen. They would probably kill this boss within a couple seconds. Instead, they just waited there for me to take all of them out. They probably could have defeated me in quotes by just killing the boss, but well, however. The next point that I could think about why people overlevel for co-op, especially overlevel this much for co-op, would be just intentionally trivializing the game for somebody who just doesn't feel secure enough to beat the game by themselves. Like in this situation right here, this guy was definitely a babysitter. He was level 170 and obviously trying to protect this guy from literally everything, I guess, using his fingerprint shield. And I've seen quite a lot of those in my days. People who are max level or close to max level, who seem to be just playing the game for someone and beating every boss for someone. Like right here, behind the corner, there was a guy waiting in full Bullgood armor with a blasphemous blade and a Golden Order greatsword. So I can only guess this guy is probably at least 150 or more. I can't tell, unfortunately, because the host was too aggressive, and this is another very typical thing for those babysitter situations, that the hosts most of the time don't really know their strengths and also not know their weaknesses. And they just run into you because they're just used to their babysitter basically taking out everything anyway. And they want to at least be able to say, I hit him too. In this case, the host is most of the time just staying back, and all he does is breathing his dragon breath at me from afar. Probably for a good reason. Maybe they already met some stronger invaders who just took out the host before the Phantom could really engage and one-shot him with his Hand of Malenia. And so the Phantom probably told the host to stay back in case of an invasion. And the babysitter in this invasion, I can already tell you, is level 160, so only 5 times my level. And that's why I don't have any remorse using the bleed claws against him. Especially since he's also using Malenia's hand, or Hand of Malenia, which is a weapon that's probably capable of one-shotting a lot of people. You need an endure setup like mine to counter it. And I'm kind of throwing him out of the animation. I'm throwing him to the ground, which is something that kind of helps him, because I cannot combo into him when he's laying on the ground. But it's just a matter of time. I'm draining his resources really quickly. He needs to drink a red flask after every engagement. But yeah, to get back to the point again, I don't understand why people do this, basically playing the game instead of someone, pulling them through it, carrying someone. I just don't get why this would be beneficial for anyone, you know, either the person getting carried, like what is this Elden Ring experience if you basically didn't do anything except just run after this guy who did everything for you. And from the other point of view, I also don't understand why someone would carry somebody else only to like show off how good they are. But then again, you wouldn't really show off how good you are if you just overlevel every boss and just use endgame gear against the early and mid game. I mean, the endgame gear for the endgame is fine, you know what I mean. I just cannot fathom this mindset that is necessary for either one of those positions to be worthwhile taking. Maybe with one exception, if somebody would pay me to beat the game for them. But even then, I would rather beat the game at an appropriate level, or maybe even a little under-leveled. Like, I had a lot of fun beating the game at level 33 with this character, for example. I also use this character for co-op a lot, sometimes appropriately appropriately at level 30, you know, or sometimes I use this character just to beat the fire giant with him for somebody who is already level 80. I mean, for me it doesn't really matter, and for them it also doesn't really matter. It's just more challenging for me and for them. As long as the boss gets beaten, it doesn't really matter. That's just my personal preference. Okay, maybe I'm a little crazy for that, but who cares? I'm also not trying to tell anyone how they should play the game. To be honest, I'm personally very happy that people do that, because I like to fight people who are, you know, harder to fight. And if everyone at level 30 would just be a new player who plays the game for the first time, level 30 invasions would be very boring. To be honest, in fact, it's those guys who make those low or mid-level invasions fun. Because you get to challenge guys at a higher level, you get to challenge guys with a lot of maybe interesting weapons or spells. Like this guy right here, he was only level 86, so he's the least overleveled guy in this compilation. And this was a really interesting fight, in my opinion. He was not just mindlessly spamming his Moonveil. He's obviously kinda babysitting this guy, but he's not super overleveled. He's just like 2.5 times my level. So yeah, anyway, that's it for this video. Again, please tell me your opinion in the comment section, especially if you have done this. I mean, overleveled co-oping, if it wasn't just for the purpose of ganking. As I said, this is the one that I obviously can imagine people doing the most, and it makes the most sense to me, even though I personally also wouldn't do that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment, like and subscribe, and see you next time. Have a good one.